Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's Gaming Friday. I'm Gary.
And I'm Jeff.
And right now, Jeff is struggling to choose his difficulty level as we take a look at Outlast.
Yeah.
Developed and published by Red Barrels and released on PC in 2014 and then PS4 and the Xbox One in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff,
Bit of an indie title.
It is an indie title. This is the first time. Well, it's not the people that make this game. It's not their first video game, but as a new founded company, it was their first release, which they also released digitally and digitally only.
Mm-hmm.
They're an independent a Canadian company that was founded in 2011, made up by ex-Ubisoft and ex-EA staff.
All right.
Who, for whatever reasons, decided that they were going to form their own company and pursue their own dreams, and that was to get back to survival horror.
Yeah.
And my god, I skipped this game when it came out. I was getting a little bit tired of the fad of a sea of first person horror games coming out that weren't really very long or not really that developed.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, and I've not played all of these games, but like Slender, The Arrival, it was kind of like a bit gimmicky.
Yeah.
But then we soon had games like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and then games like Layers of Fear.
Yeah.
And some of those games worked. They really developed the atmosphere, and I guess the cynic in me looked at them and called them walking simulators in haunted house.
Yeah. Because you don't really fight, do you?
No. And so it was, and then there was Alien Isolation, which was the game that actually brought me back to that genre.
Yeah.
Because, I missed the Silent Hill games, and the Resident Evils went full on into the action genre until recently, where they've also now come back to this very genre, first person survival horror with very limited weapons and capabilities. So the story in this game is you play a freelance journalist named Miles, and you have just turned up at Mount Massive Asylum, and just look at that. Doesn't that just look inviting to you? Don't you just want to go snooping around inside that asylum?
It certainly is, a trope, isn't it? This sort of gigantic, sort of slightly gothic style looking mansion, European styling on it.
Yeah,
they definitely. They're not pulling any punches there, are they? They've just gone straight for cliche. But then, I suppose you're fairly limited with horror genre, aren't you? Like, what is actually scary? Like, you need an area that's big.
Yeah.
And a mental asylum is full of nutters, so...
I've never been able to look at mental asylums again since Hellraiser 2, Hellbound.
Yeah.
That insane asylum with Dr. Chenard. Just my god. So, asylums in horror, even we played Blood the other day has asylum levels.
Yeah.
It is definitely a trope, but it still works when it's used effectively.
Oh, you can see your body.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. These days, you need to be able to get that sense of person, because
otherwise you're just floating head, disembodied head.
Disembodied eyes, you don't really.
Well, also the horror genre tended to stick to third person quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
I guess you could include games like BioShock and System Shock as sort of early-ish sort of first person horror, but they had a lot more weapons and variety of weapons that you could use in those.
Yeah.
So you were turning up at this asylum, and you've been tipped off the fact that a certain corporation, which will be known as the Murkoff Corporation, has been conducting inhuman experiments in this asylum.
Of course.
So you've turned up to find out if there's any truth to this.
Yeah.
So I've completed this game, Jeff, from start to finish, and I completed it in about 5 sittings. Only because I got to certain points where I was like, I can't take it anymore. I need to take a break from the game and come back to it. And I kind of played it in chapters. So I think you've just managed to break the game already, Jeff. What were you doing? What were you doing?
Just seeing if I could interact with the back of that truck. Hey, there
Right,
we go.
right. You need to work your way around the left side of the building, Jeff, to get in. There's lots of things out here, but none of them are interactable. Nothing out here at all. You just got to get into the asylum.
That
so
definitely looks suspicious, though, doesn't it?
Armored trucks outside the asylum.
Asylum with armored trucks. What the fuck?
Well, yeah, and as the game will go on, because I don't want to spoil too much for people that have not played the game. As a matter, I'm just going to say now, if you've not played the game and you are a horror enthusiast and you were perhaps skeptical like I was, this game is really cheap. As a matter of fact, it's already at one point been given away on the Xbox console as a freebie.
There's
so
an expansion as well, isn't there?
There is also a DLC expansion for the game called Whistleblower, and it is also a must. You're going to have to buy that too. I'm telling you now, because once you finish Outlast, it is a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
But so many more questions still are left unanswered, and the mystery surrounding everything that you've witnessed, you kind of want to know more. And the DLC does that, and I kind of wish it's a bit of a shame that you have to pay for it as an add-on. I would have loved for it to have been, I don't know, like an unlockable, maybe if you finish the game under certain conditions. That you would have unlocked it, because the Whistleblower, you actually play the character who sent Miles the email that starts this game.
Right, okay.
And Whistleblower starts with you actually finishing that message.
Okay.
But then throughout that DLC, you end up being knocked out unconscious for whatever reasons. I won't go into it.
Yeah.
And then you wake up during the events of this game. And so Whistleblower is playing out before, during, and after the events in this game.
Okay.
So, and that is just amazing, the way that they tie it all in, and that you revisit locations that Miles is yet to come to, and locations that Miles has just recently left. And it's like, you imagine then, if you were Miles, if you just waited in this corridor long enough, you might have just bumped into the Whistleblower.
They sort of just expand the whole thing then. Really.
They definitely. It makes me think like they had all the ideas there, and so it's just kind of fleshed out a little bit more and gives you a little bit more backstory and a different perspective on the events.
Cool.
Which is really good. And so when I was also surprised that they almost immediately after Outlast had released announced Outlast 2.
Yeah.
Which came out earlier this year in 2017. And it has nothing to do with this game. It's just its own fresh story in a different environment with the same gameplay. And that also works. It plays to the exact same kind of fears that this game puts on you. Being in a very hostile place with very low lighting and no real way of fighting back. It is a game that plays on your fears with its atmosphere, not knowing what's in the dark, that everything can kill you, and that in order to survive, you must progress. There are certain points in this game that, whilst you're under duress of being chased by psychopaths, that you are going to have to, in the dark, run around and find different items or keys, yellow card, green card, blue key card. It's that kind of formula. In the dark, find those items and then get them all to one door in order to find the actual key that you needed for the door that was right at the beginning of the level. And
jump
like
through key
two
gates.
or three of the entire levels in this game, which take about an hour-ish to complete. And so it can be a bit frustrating, but those items always appear in the exact same locations each time. So the early part of the game, it's easing you into the game. Obviously, I'm talking all the way through this, so your immersion's being taken away. But finding and reading these notes is integral to you finding out what's going on, because otherwise you're only going to get drip-fed tiny bits of nutty information from some of the inmates in the asylum, which are still partially coherent.
Whatever happened here doesn't look good, does it?
It doesn't, no. And I also like the fact that if you step in those blood piles, you will leave behind your own bloody footprints as well. The lighting in this game is fantastic. Also, the dynamic music really works, obviously. It pitches and rises and changes depending on the events.
He's in there.
Now, there are also events like that are scripted that the camera won't force you to look at. So if you look away, you'll miss stuff. Now, like events like that happening. There's also necrophilia in the game,
Oh.
but only if you catch it will you find an inmate raping a dead inmate.
That's,
There's also
just what you
full
like.
frontal male nudity in this game,
Oh,
but
right.
only if you direct your camera and look at it.
Right. Is it in the darkness? You gotta have it. Is it infrared?
It's kind of in the dark, and so
infrared
yeah.
nudity?
Yeah. So, as I said, there's no real fighting back. When you are being chased, you do need to just find hiding spots, whether it is in a vent, under a bed, under a desk.
Yeah.
And the enemies do sometimes appear a little bit dumb. Like, you could have hidden behind that door there, and they might not have seen you. They would have come in the room and gone back out again.
Yeah.
But some enemies will just instantly know where you are, even if you're hiding in a locker.
Right.
You've got to hope that there's at least 3 lockers there, and they might decide to only open one of them.
Okay.
And leave you in there. And that's how they get you with the tension. Because you're just holding your breath like, please don't see me, please don't see me. It's a standard survival trope.
Yeah, just like
But it's
in
executed
Alien
very
Resurrection.
well. Alien Isolation.
Yeah, Alien
Yeah.
Isolation. Yeah.
So jump scares
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Shit your pants. What the fuck? Jump out at you moments. This game does it in spades.
And then they try to make you peer through everything through this tiny little,
Yes.
field of view restricting.
Camera. Yeah. So you have the camera, and I love the fact that the whole game is
Music.
done in the style of it's found footage.
Yeah,
So you're playing
yeah.
this game like,
No head.
is this somebody who's found my videotape and they're watching this back right now? Or am I now actually recording this for future evidence? I don't know.
Oh.
So it is, you also have, part of the difficulty comes in the fact that if you look in the top right corner, you can see how many batteries you currently have
Yeah.
to how many you can actually hold. And there is a security guard who's just hanging around.
They got out the variants.
You can't fight them. You have to hide. You can unlock the main
That looks pretty sore there, mate.
Well, yeah. I don't think he's gonna
Don't think you're
get
gonna
out
get
of
up
there.
there, mate.
But I like the fact that this is just adding to your fear levels, that you are actually seeing some of the mutilation that has
Surely
taken
you would
place.
just slide down that.
I don't know, maybe.
You would get bloody and then you go flip so your feet are on the floor, surely.
Yeah, but it's still quite effective just to have him suspended there. So the difficulty comes in the battery levels. Now, at the beginning, you saw that you had the choices of a bunch of difficulty levels. The difficulty level, as far as I'm aware, it sort of increases their detection rate of you.
Right.
It also decreases the amount of damage you can take,
Yeah.
but it also reduces you to being able to only carry 1 battery.
Yeah.
And on the hardest difficulty level, you only have 1 life to do
Okay.
the entire game,
Right.
which is ridiculous because, sometimes you can just get unlucky. And even though you've done everything right, that psychopath is just going to come and tear your eyes out.
And so does that mean that's it? It's over.
It's over. You start the whole game again. You're gonna love these freaky portraits, and some of these
Yeah, I was gonna
characters
say
are
that-
actually characters in the game. The ones that you've just looked at are actually characters in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell from the fidelity of the image
Yes.
that it's significant.
Yeah. Yes. Now the graphics in the game, I think, are adequate. Some of the environments look fantastic, but it's when you get up close
Yeah,
that the
some of the
textures
textures are a bit
really let you down, and that's
ropey.
also the same for a lot of the character models, which it kind of loses a little bit of its impact, especially when you're in lighter areas. Right now, that there is Chris Walker.
Right. He's got no lips.
He is one of the biggest antagonists in the game.
Right.
He is truly frightening. Truly. Just in his
He's a bit fucked up.
appearance.
Is that one of the other guys?
That's one of the other
one
guys. I think that's
portraits?
the priest, one of the father characters.
Yeah.
Who
They've done them all like half reptilian almost looking, haven't they?
well,
They're
they've
like,
all undergone these mutations in these experiments.
Okay. Right.
And I won't go into the spoilers, but you really need to pick up the documents and keep reading about all
Yeah.
of the different experiments and how evolution over the 50 years that they've been doing these experiments has
Yeah.
led them to the point where they are now. Interestingly, Chris Walker and some of the other inmates in this asylum have had their backstories fleshed out in comic book form, also
Oh, really?
developed and published by Red Barrel. So it's from the own source material. They've kind of expanded the lore more and more and more as they've gone on.
A lot of people like
And
him. Look at that. Is that
that is
he's
his
not
head.
headless, but that's just like a mush where his head was.
Yeah. And so you can also see right
something
now
like
that the
taking their
inmates
heads off,
have come out and caused havoc. Or is there
With
perhaps
intestines on it.
something else that's broken free?
Yeah.
Now, as you heard, one of the security guards mentioned variants.
Yeah.
And Chris Walker is one of those sort of extreme variants where
Right.
he's kind of mutated and changed.
Yeah.
But, his physique was always of that size. And in his backstory, you find out that he had served in Afghanistan
Yeah.
and come back. And even though he was a giant, he was kind of childlike in his mentality.
Right.
And he just ended up doing surveillance security for, the Murkoff Corporation. And
Murkoff.
but it turned out that the Murkoff Corporation wasn't afraid of performing experiments on its own staff either.
Yeah.
Especially if they felt like they'd perhaps seen too much.
Right.
And so you get into all these layers of conspiracy.
Cool.
And you also find out, and this is my favorite psychopath in the game. So that for those of you that have played the game, Dr. Rick Traeger, who is a demented mutilator who is in the purest pursuit of knowledge,
He's a radio.
particularly
Yeah.
in that of biology.
Of
He
course.
fancies himself a doctor, a surgical doctor.
Yeah.
And his weapon of choice are giant shears. They're more like scissor shaped, but the
Yeah.
length of them is full bodied.
Lovely.
And so he likes to get in close and chop you to pieces. He also taunts you and screams, and it's each one of these characters has their personality that you become accustomed to when you're hiding in the bed right next to them, and they're walking around trying to find you, and they're trying to tease you into coming out of hiding. It's when you really figure out who these people are, other than when you're kind of forced into these horrific torture porn scenarios where you're kind of tied to a chair and things happen to you and you have no choice but to watch and look. And some of those scenarios and events are truly unhinged.
Right.
More so, even more so in the Whistleblower DLC. If you thought you had experienced everything the first-person survival horror genre could throw at you in this game, the DLC does it again. And Outlast 2, it tops it even more. And so they've just become even more creative with their kills and their characters.
Is it as cringy as what happens to Isaac in Dead Space?
Just as. Well, Isaac in those scenarios often dies. In this one, you keep living
You
through
just gotta
the
watch it.
pain. Yes, you do. And then, of course, you can also capture and witness unspeakable things being done to other inmates as well.
Oh, there's somebody alive over there. Well,
So
a form of alive.
the basis of the game is, as you're seeing right now, is just a case of walking around, trying to find those files, trying to find those documents,
Yeah.
trying to progress further into the asylum to actually uncover, and then once you do uncover those events, to try and then actually get the hell back out of the asylum once you've captured enough evidence to damn them all.
Yeah. Skinny.
Otherwise, you are just going to be walking through corridors and seeing, the non-hostile entities, those that have kind of been sedated in a way.
Yeah.
Now, you also have, if you come back to that menu again, you'll also have notes. You had the notes and the documents.
Yes.
If you go into the notes, so you have the documents. If you go into the notes, these are actually your character's monologue, where he's
Okay.
writing down. And this is also a really great way to figure out who your character is. And whenever you capture on camera something, he will document them down. So when you witness something horrific,
Yeah.
and then you see the little icon appear that your character's just written something in the diary, it's often worth reading it just to put yourself in Miles's position to see how he's reacting. And sometimes he literally just writes, "Oh my fucking god, what the fuck was that?"
So you see, I'm recording all this. Look at
And
this
they're
dude.
not too bothered about your presence,
No.
They've already torn up all the security guards. They've kind of got the run of the asylum now.
Yeah, you got pretty
They've all got horrific wounds, and some of them are more,
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of them, when they see you, will just run under their beds and cry and
Right.
hide.
Okay.
And yes, later on
got
you will
weird
find the
suits,
variants
haven't they?
that will want to hunt you down and kill you.
Them just sort of sat there sedate is quite weird, isn't it? Like, why are they just sat there watching
Well,
looking at the wall?
I could tell you, but when you uncover how these experiments were performed on them,
Yeah.
some of them are included being strapped to chairs and being force watched. These screens and these flashing images that plant the subliminal imagery in your mind of how horrific and it's messed up. It's all kind of messed up. I'm trying to recall the horrors of it, but part of me is just not wanting to. It's like, don't recall those memories. It's like, imagine, those flash sequences from Event Horizon just being played out on a loop for days whilst you're being given these mind-altering drugs and also having these experiments done on your brain and on your body. It's just horrific. It's just horrific.
It's not a place you want to come and chill out. So I mean, it's miserably grim. I mean, but is it enjoyable though?
Oh, fuck yes. Because it gets your adrenaline going. It actually gets you scared. This game is tense and violent and brutal. And it does it really well. You get to the points where you're cringing opening those stall doors, and some of the doors you can actually control the speed at which you open the door, so you can slowly creep the door open and have a look around. I think the bumper buttons will enable you to sort of pan left and right, peek your head out from round corners.
There's lots of body parts in here.
There are lots of body parts. Now, I have some criticisms that you will probably find the same decapitated head about 30 times throughout the game. You'll find the same security guard in every corner of the asylum, and you're like, what you do? So they are kind of limited, and you'll also see the same desks, the same computers, the same terminals, the same repeated graphics.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take anything away from it. The game is only roughly 4 to 6 hours. So it doesn't get old before the game's over. And it left me wanting more, in which case went to the Whistleblower. And then after that had completed, I was completely satisfied that I just experienced a truly great survival horror game, that something that I'd not really appreciated since maybe Condemned and then Condemned 2. Although in those games there was you had to fight back. You had to beat everything to death with melee weapons.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it really it's not really on a par with Condemned, is it? Because Condemned was pretty
Well, Condemned was a much longer game, had a much bigger production values, and is probably the better game for it.
Yeah.
Because you could fight back. There was a bit more game to it.
Yeah.
Whereas this is simplistic cat and mouse.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said, again, it's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed the Friday the 13th game, is it is just one game mode, very simplistic, cat and mouse.
Yeah.
Avoid the killer. The killer catches you, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so it comes down to the playhouse that you're in, and how rewarding an experience it is for you as a horror fan to take in the scenery, to take in those jump scares and appreciate those finely crafted moments of pure horror. And if you can let yourself go and be drawn into the game, play with headphones on, lights out. When you hear the dripping water, the footfalls of somebody approaching you in the dark, when you've run out of batteries in the night vision and you're feeling your way around, somewhere in, the male ward section of the asylum, your panic levels start to rise, and which is why I could only play the game in so many sittings. I was just like, I've taken enough beating psychologically right now that I need to take a break and go play something else and then come back to it. And I also appreciated that I didn't want to glutton the entire game and devour it in one sitting. I wanted to pace it out so that I could enjoy it a little bit longer, because I said it's a short game, but at the same time it's also a budget game.
Zoom in, zoom out. I mean, this is the thing. I think for me, I think I'd have to get the atmosphere going as well, because
right now you're wandering around and I'm
I'm
talking to you and reviewing.
I'm not in the setting, so nothing in here at the moment is giving me the EBGBs. It's a bit weird, but I mean, gore and nut jobs on their own aren't enough to scare me. So I think you need to have the sound up, get consumed by the atmosphere. I definitely think you need to take the time and make a set piece out of it, get into the right mindset.
Yeah. I
Because-
think the first instance that happens to you is after the first chase. Like
Yeah.
you saw Carl Walker turn up earlier and throw you around, you
Yeah.
know, so he's already set himself up as an antagonist in the game, so that when you see him next, and you also see him decapitate a couple of other inmates,
Yeah, you're like,
You
oh, this
know-
guy's the shit.
this guy is the shit. And then when his attention is turned to you again, and then, you know, controls are back on you and you just have to run. Once you've had that moment, that first moment of trying to get away from him, I think that's when you know you're in the game. That's when you know whether you're going to play it to the end.
Because Amnesia is also set in a mental asylum, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was also a game which, you know, there was no fighting back. It was a case of once something horrific was coming at you, run and hide from it
Yeah.
until you thought it was gone.
That was the scary girl
Yes.
trope.
Yeah.
And this is this isn't like, well, I mean, as far as I know, it's not setting you up for ghosts. This is more like science gone wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas Amnesia is all spiritual, isn't it? It's
Well,
ghosts right
this
from the
game,
beginning.
once you get, as you're playing throughout the game, the mystery, as I said, starts to unfold, and you realize that there was occult members, Nazi members, and there was investigations into the soul and into
right.
the afterlife, and scientifically trying to do all sorts of things involving these experiments. So,
All right, that made
wow,
me jump.
we gotcha. So, proof is in the pudding right there. You're not even partially paying attention, and it gotcha.
Yeah, got me.
Now
Yeah.
imagine with the headphones on and the lights out.
I was just gonna
It's
run
so
past him. Yeah.
effective. And so yes, the game will
That did
later
make
on
jump.
blur the lines of what is going on. Is what going on paranormal? Have they brought something across from the other side? Is it aliens? Is it what is it? And that's why you'll also want the whistleblower to figure out and see even more of what the hell has gone on. I highly recommend Outlast. It's, you know, when winter is set in and it's cold outside, maybe during the October season of Halloween,
Oh, look at
this
that.
is a perfect game. You can even sit with a group of friends and
Look
play
behind
this
you
game.
like that as
And
well.
if you all get invested in it at the same time, everyone on the couch is going to jump at the exact same time. Definitely.
Yeah, that was a decent.
out
that
Outlast.
was a decent jump scare. I got complacent there. I got cocky, and then it made me jump. So
Yes.
yeah,
So
that was good.
it's almost, you know, cinematic in the way that it kind of the game has those scripted events happen to you at the right intervals, so that the spacing of them is not consistent, and so isn't able to catch you off guard just like that.
It's good. It was good. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to scare me, but it made me jump. Even though it was only like a flash second, it was enough to make me make stupid noise. So there you go. That was all recorded. That was a genuine stupid jump noise. Oh, there's the. Is that the preacher?
It's one of the inmates who's, yeah. So now you need to go and restart the generator. And here we go with, some of the tropey sort of gameplay. But with that, I do want to recommend the game. Definitely.
Oh.
And there's Carl
Fatso.
Walker who's just snooping around outside. And he's going to break the door in. And you needed to have hidden in one of those cabinets over there, but now there's no real escaping. And so with that, I just want to say thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back next Friday with another video game, of course, film reviews on Thursdays. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.
Take it easy.